I never tie geodes with this many ties per bunch. I normally do 4, so like 1, 2, 3, 4, and that's how I tied this to start with. And then I'm like, let's see what would happen if I did a whole bunch of ties in between. Because something I have realized from my recent experiments with the cosmic egg is that you can actually saturate into these really hard, densely tied bunches if you use ice and a lot of it. It'll slowly seep in there. If you use some black, then the black and the dark blue can seep under the ties, and then the ice keeps washing it through, and then you can deposit lighter colors in between the ties, and it looks really nice. So I'm gonna try it and see how it looks. But right now, there's like large gaps between these bunches. That looks appropriate when the gaps here are bigger, but I don't think it's gonna look appropriate with the closer ties. So I'm gonna go ahead and like add in some random ties between all of these tentacles. So I added some more ties in the center. Everything looks pretty uniformly tied. That's my goal. Now I'm gonna go put some dye and ice on top of this. I think I'm gonna use my favorite color scheme, which is black, wasabi, citrus yellow, and peach. It's a color combination that I know looks good like almost all the time. So if I'm gonna try experimenting with something new, I wanna use a color combo that I know works well so that I don't like waste all of this effort tying just to have like bad colors, you know? Here's the secret to my amazing tie-dyes recently. I'm putting black on before everything else, and then I put the ice and then the colors on top of the ice. I'm showing you myself putting the dye on top of the ice because people have asked recently like how much dye I'm using because they're getting results that are really dark. So here is how much dye I'm sprinkling on top. I feel like I'm usually way more heavy-handed than this. It takes a lot of self-control just to use this little amount of dye, but the results are very nice. I ended up using Seafoam and Glacier Blue, which is not, I didn't include that in the beginning of the video. Just sprinkling on some soda ash and letting the ice melt, and here we are. It looks pretty good so far. Okay, let's take a look from the top how these colors ended up landing on the shirt. Originally I put on somewhere in this area Glacier Blue and Seafoam, and then over here we have wasabi, citrus yellow, and peach. So I think that looks dispersed really nicely. The wasabi splits like yellow and blue and green-ish. As far as batching goes, I think that ideally it would look best if I just left this for another 12 hours. But I don't want to wait to see how it looks. And I'm going to stick it into this plastic baggie and then drop that into a bin of hot water. You can also skip the baggie. If you skip the bag, then a little bit of the dye on the outside will like bleed off and wash off, and then you'll have like a little light ray effect, which also looks cool. But I'm just gonna do the bag method today. That's what it looks like on the back because blue travels the farthest. A lot of white space on that one. Hopefully that looks all right. Here is the hot soak situation. So I'll like leave it there for a half hour and then come flip the bag over so that the other side can get hot for a half hour and then rinse it out. Here's what it looks like after soaking in the baggie for an hour. It doesn't look like too much dye transferred anywhere, so that's good. The ice does a really good job of really rinsing out most of the excess dye anyway, so I feel like that's why the bag method works fine. But if you have a lot of dye left over that's not rinsed through, then it could definitely transfer to different areas, and you might not like that if you have like light yellows and you want to keep those light yellow. That's what it looked like when I first tied it up before I decided to add more ties in between. So I'm pretty excited about how that looks. Lots of darks seeping under the ties, so that's what I want. Very exciting. I don't know if you guys try on the stuff that turns out particularly well, but this one is good. Look at this sleeve back here. I love the way that turned out with the shadowing between the bright colors. And even this area where it's like mostly gray, but it's not blotchy. So there's like smoothness through here. I love that. So the whole shirt doesn't need to be bright colors. In fact, I think that the colors look brighter and the whole shirt looks more balanced if most of the shirt is kind of tame, and then you just have some areas that pop. So that's my 2 cents for now. The bottom also looks pretty cool, but you can't see that part very easily like this. Here's what the shirt looks like hung up and flat, and I think the camera makes everything look more contrasty than it is in real life. This doesn't, like the darks in this are not so dark in person. So I really love these areas where it's kind of peachy. Ice dye is really good for getting like the shadowing effect next to the lines, the darkness. Just don't use too much black. Thought this section was quite nice. I don't know if I'll be able to show you like this, but oops, there we go. I think the sleeves on this turned out pretty nice. Usually you think of like this area as the most important, and while I do think it is, it's pretty cool when the sleeves also turn out really cool. Okay, here's the back of it. There's a lot more like black in the lines, so that's its own very cool effect. So yeah, just use a lot of ice and less dye than you think you need.